Hey everybody, welcome to our episode of the Lifecycle Marketing webinar series. For many of you around the world, this is probably back to school time. So we're staying on that theme as schools and universities are opening back up. We thought it would be cool to focus on EdTech in this edition of Lifecycle Marketing. And we've got two lifecycle marketers here from different EdTech companies that we're excited to get into some topics on activation, retention, personalization. What should you put in your messages to be most effective? So super excited to dive into all of those things here. I'm Cody. I'm on the marketing team here at Customerio. If you haven't heard of Customerio before, we're a cross-channel customer engagement platform that allows you to use your data coming from your product, what your customers are doing in your product, and then convert that into more personalized experiences through your messaging. So maybe that's helping get somebody towards starting their first course if we're talking EdTech and e-learning. Maybe more broadly, you're just trying to get mobile app users to log in for the first time or send that push notification when they haven't logged in for a while. So Customer is all about building these advanced workflows that help you do things based on if a user is taking those next steps or not. So I think our guests here today are no strangers to building these kind of workflows that adapt and react based on different things that their customers are doing. So I'm super excited to have Olga Shchicko, a retention marketing manager at LingoPie, on our panel here today, as well as Jackie Wei. Thanks for joining us from People Grove, Lifecycle Marketing Manager. I think as we jump into these topics, what would be helpful first, Olga, I'm going to start with you. If you could kind of give us a quick rundown of what LingoPie is and what value your product or service provides your users.
In very short words, Engapati is Netflix for language learners. So you can just watch your favorite TV show, like in Spanish language, and you can have the ability to translate it into English, save words into flashcards, and really it makes like all the process of learning new language very comfortable, user-friendly, and convenient. So that's our platform.
Awesome. Thanks, Olga. Jackie, what about People Grove? What value does your product provide your users?
Yeah, so People Grove is higher education's first career access platform. So we're a smart career network that recommends mentorship, networking, and career exploration, and the job connections that together effectively build the social capitals that learners need to succeed. So my role is to promote the growth of People Grove's partners networks of students and alumni.
Awesome. And I think prefaced here as we had these last couple slides for the audience, you can probably see we have a couple different business models, both in EdTech and e-learning space, but I think that'll be cool as we go through this to see kind of the different approaches. And I think for folks in the audience who aren't necessarily, maybe your business isn't EdTech and e-learning, I think a lot of these concepts can be applied across the board. So excited to have kind of an education spin on things here today. But for those who aren't in education, there should be a lot of good nuggets in here to take away. Okay, so I'm actually going to post our first poll to the audience. So as folks are answering what they want to hear today, we also want to know what maybe you are prioritizing today in your customer lifecycle processes. So I just posted that poll in the bottom right. So go ahead and give us a vote, and we'll make sure that we focus on topics that you care about. Okay, as those answers roll in, one thing, Jackie and Olga, as we kick off this conversation and get into more of the tactical lifecycle marketing type tips and tricks, starting at more of a high level perspective, what I want to hear from you, maybe Olga, I can start with you again. What's unique about marketing in EdTech and e-learning? Is there kind of something that's different in the approach to other industries, things that are similar, or kind of how do you step into creating retention and lifecycle campaigns in this space?
Yes, in our case, like it's people like making a very quick impulse decision to start learn language in our case, and they want to participate, but they like lose their interest very quickly, and that's like our biggest challenge. And we work with just like to keep them engaged, like and participate and continue and not churn, like so they like and even really continue the registration process because they sometimes give us credentials and even never pick language to learn. So that's the biggest focus here. And we try to build our process of onboarding like emails, just like to lead them through, because you need to have strong will, just like to force yourself to learn until the end without mentor. So in our case, this is like the biggest, specialty like for our process in e-learning.
Yeah. Jackie, I know I'm interested to hear your response to this too, because I know that you've had some experience in the education space before People Grove as well. So what would you say is kind of like different about education marketing or EdTech marketing versus other industries?
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind is how siloed education in institutions can be. So we were actually talking about this a little bit before we got started. You know, our business model is to help as many students and as learners as possible to access our networks, and our networks are more powerful when we have more people in them. But because our institutions are very siloed, it can be very challenging to get buy-in from the whole institution. So sometimes we're selling just into a business school, sometimes we're selling just into an alumni association. So that really limits our ability to access and create bigger networks. I think the other thing that's challenging, and this is kind of specific to my role, and I'm in a more of a B2B2C model in my role, is that we are going through through the university to get to users, and each of those different universities might have different brand affinity level. So you have some schools that have highly engaged alumni, have a highly engaged or a strong brand affinity with their school, and they follow the football team, or they go back and do give back events, or they're giving money back to the school for endowment. And then you have other schools that they got their degree and then they left and that was it, and that creates a bigger challenge to draw in users into these platforms.
Yeah, I think as you're saying that too, I think folks in the audience, again, who maybe aren't in EdTech e-learning, I think there's little tidbits of that probably can relate across models too, of brand affinity and people who are super engaged in this segment, but not in this one with different clients. So, okay, thanks for the thoughts there. I'm interested in the poll. I see activation and onboarding, 60% of the votes went there. I'm not sure. I'll have to look back. I feel like activation and onboarding wins whenever we run this poll. So maybe folks are here wanting to make a good first impressions with their users as soon as they step in. So I think that's definitely a topic that we're going to get to today. Just to do a quick refresh for anybody who has joined a little bit late, here's where we're going to go today. So the key question is, how can lifecycle campaigns be a key component of your growth strategy? We're going to start with onboarding activation. We're going to jump into product adoption expansion, kind of how do you get folks to find more value in those middle stages of the life cycle. And then we're going to round it out with kind of the later stage stuff. What about when folks are at risk of churn, or how do you re-engage people who have fallen inactive? Okay, so we're going to jump now right into the tactical stuff, starting with onboarding activation. As I prefaced, I'm curious, this is both of LingoPie on the left and People Grove on the right, a part of the sign up process to create an account. I think what's notable is both of y'all's businesses are capturing data on who someone is and what they're looking to do, or what value they're looking to find in your platform. So to kick things off, Olga, maybe I'll start with you. What types of information is important at this first stage of somebody signing up, and how are you using that to engage them based on that in onboarding?
Yeah, so for us, the most important information is like language they want to learn and their level of language fluency, because unfortunately yet we have no like test to identify like how fluent people are, and we just like rely on their honesty. To be honest, like we are considering to reduce like other questions to our onboarding process, because we see how it like holds back people to finish registration, like when they have a lot like steps before they can start to meet this platform. And the magic, like the biggest magic happens after they start trialing like the beautiful onboarding process. So two factors here, the level and the language, like besides credentials for us is important.
Yeah, Jackie, what are your thoughts here? What types of first steps are you trying to get a user to take based on, what they've told you that they care about? Uh-oh, Jackie might be frozen on us. We'll give her a quick second. Hopefully she can pop back in here. We can ask that. Olga, I'm curious, is it a one size fits all onboarding messaging flow, or are your messages, your campaigns, talk to me about actual campaign building? Are these adapting and reacting based on these types of data?
You mean just like how we interact with them after they give us credentials, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have different, we have 10 flows, depends on which stage of making decisions, start and don't start free trial, and depend on level and language they pick. So we treat them differently, with subject lines and content related to their specific details they gave us and their level, just to recommend them relevant content to start with on the platform. And sometimes we shift our onboarding process from the platform if they didn't speak language at all in the first hour after registration. We shifted to our emails just to deliver them in any case, if you have no chance to lead them through your amazing product. So that's how we deal with it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for walking through that. Jackie, we lost you for a second, but I'll kick it back with the question I was asking. How do you engage folks during this onboarding phase based on maybe this data that they're giving you in their first form or the first interactions that they're taking? How do you onboard them?
Yeah, so we start with the data that we're getting from our partners, and that really gives us user types, which is in this case the most important are student and alumni. And so we speak to the value propositions that are most powerful to those to get them to the product. And then once we get them to the product and they have signed up and they're starting this form process, each of these answers leads to an archetype. So it's kind of like a higher level persona that we can help use to guide the next steps for depending on what they're looking for. So whether they're already in a successful career and they just want to give back to users that haven't gotten there yet, or whether they really have no idea what they're doing and they haven't even picked a major yet in their at their university. Each one of those guides us to tell them what the next step is. So that's how we define those. I think the other thing that's interesting that we've done is acquisition is a big thing for us, getting those users into the platform, because we're having to go through those lists that universities provide. And one test that we did was using a highly recognizable name in those invitations. So having a dean or a president of the university be part of that invitation process really helped us get in front of more alumni and students, and less questions of, is this spam? Well, no, because it was sent from the president, it was sent from the dean. So that really helped improve recognition of the platform and help prepare people for the invitations that were coming. So that's how one of the tests we ran that was successful for us recently in that growth area.
That's really interesting, Jackie. How did you measure that using the dean's name or an administrator's name that people would recognize worked better? Was it open rates or click rates, or was it a conversion of sorts?
All of the above. So all of those metrics ended up improving based off of using those names compared to what we were doing before. And we're also incorporating more of the branding of the university, letting People Grove's brand take a little back seat in the initial campaign to the university's brand. So there was a little bit more recognition, and we were able to see increases of open and click rates, especially in students, which is very surprising because they're a hard group to reach by email. But we actually saw students open those emails and interact with them at a higher rate due to that experiment. So that's something that we've implemented for all of our launches going forward.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Olga, I'm curious, is there any tests that you've ran during onboarding or things that you've noticed perform a little bit better than others?
So when I started, we had very old-fashioned approach to welcome email, only one for everybody, just say it, welcome to LinkedIn, and nobody reads it. So we started do a bit testing from top. So the first approach is just to test open rates. So it doesn't matter how good is your content. The goal is just to compare which subject line will lead to bigger open rates. So right now it's just congratulations, your journey to language fluency, depends on what you pick, starts now. So with emojis. So in our case, it works the best comparing to the others, and we have open rates up to 35% of open rates sometimes of this email. And after that, we testing right now we just rebuilding a little bit our approach, and we testing the content, because we are thinking what better onboard people a little bit, or just throw them to the TV shows to engage. So right now we in the process to improve our click-through rates and conversions in the end. So this from top to bottom.
Yeah. Olga, what do you count as a conversion in onboarding? Is it actually someone becoming a paid user, going from free to paid, or is it more of these little micro conversion steps throughout? Or how do you track somebody who's successfully onboarded?
As in our case, emails are just supportive tool, because sometimes a user can open an email, go somewhere, go to the organic channel, and then make a decision. For us, this, the first the more target is to convert them to start trial, because they can start pay only after 7 days of trial in our case. So our metric is converted to trial user in 2 days after opening email, but it depends on campaign, because sometimes it's just could be a smaller amount of time when we do some short-term offer with timers in emails or counters. So, and then we just seeing how many people who started trialing converting to the paying users after opening. So we just measure it an additional a little bit differently than acquisitional channels like Google Ads, search ads that has last click attribution model mostly. So this open to conversion.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And you have a B2C subscription model.
Yeah.
Jackie, how do you measure or what are the conversions that you're trying to get someone to do, knowing that your end user actually isn't the person, since you're more of a B2B model? The end user, the college student, isn't the person paying the bill for People Grow, but they are someone who you want engaged. What types of things do you count as success?
Yeah, our big measure of success is connections. So connecting people to people. So as soon as someone's sent a message that is a big and reached out to somebody else, that tells us that we're doing something right and they're using the platform the way that it's going to get the most value for them. So that is our big conversion metric is messages, number of messages. Yep.
For somebody in the audience who maybe is at the starting stages of determining how to build out their lifecycle messaging, and maybe they don't know yet that getting a college student to send a message to someone or connect to a mentor is a key lifecycle stage or a key thing to get them to, how would you say they should start out and approach that process of finding out what those key value milestones are?
Yeah, I think that it's important to work with your product team and develop that user journey so that you can align your messaging and your lifecycle campaigns around what you're trying to drive in the product and what's going to bring the most value to students and alumni, so, and your users in general. So I think it's just really important to collaborate highly with your product team and have a shared understanding of what that should look like. I don't think you can't market in a in your own lane. You really need to collaborate across the organization to understand what the value props are, and also what are the key measures of success that you're going to try to drive. So I think collaboration across your entire organization is really going to help you build a successful campaign and understand what those milestones should be.
Yeah. Olga, is that similar at LingoPie? Are you collaborating with product frequently on those type of things, or kind of how does the product experience match the messaging experience?
Yeah, so I'd say that we try to keep consistency. But if user just like already like onboarded with the platform, started to do something, we try to not overwhelm them, double this knowledge, and we push them more to interact with platforms. So after somebody trialing, and after like somebody decides to trial like in the platform, the first session, I'd say, we do not push them with like repetitive knowledge, like functionality. We just like want them to go and learn and keep being focused like on their learning, to not lose interest on this. And we just like have different approach for those who are trialing or just like those who paying us already, like and we try to keep them like interested, like with content, with TV shows, to not overwhelm with technical details. And even I'd say they are not very interested in newsletters about what's something new and technical like plans. They just like more focused on content. For those who are not like who registered and forgot for us, we have like 5 emails like flow every day, like with partly onboarding, partly reminding them to continue the registration. Partly we want to seduce them with like content they might like to try, but they haven't yet. And the last one is just like the last word in every marketing discount. Just grab it and go and try it. So yes, and then if it doesn't work, they go to the cap of like old users, and I trying to push like once a week, twice a week with different like approach, discounts, or reminders, or just like we missing you. And then it works. Like actually some very old users like year or like more like that registered like more than a year ago, like so they really like started convert back. So that's like good sign. So like this, we try to treat differently like users on different like stage of decision making and product interaction in our case.
I really like what you
Yeah.
were saying earlier about if somebody's in the product already, they're already logging in, making sure that you're hitting them in the product, right? Like you don't need to send them emails trying to drive them into the product because they're already there. And so I think that's really important to mention, that if you've got somebody who's already logging in and already in the platform, to hit them where they're at and to speak to them, to the behavior you're trying to drive, and not fill up their inbox with emails that they don't need, because you already have them in the product, and that's the best place really to get them to take the next action.
That's a really interesting, call out. Interesting point, Olga, and call out on that point, Jackie. I'm curious, Jackie, what you're saying about hit them in the product. Are you managing those type of in-app messages, or is that product team, or like, what do you mean by hit them in the product, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, well, right now that's more managed by the product team than myself, just in our organization. But like I was saying before, highly collaborative, right? Like I might be more focused on especially the growth and acquisition piece, which if they haven't joined the product yet, we basically have email and helping our partners do on-campus activation, and that's kind of our 2 channels they have available. So, but once they're in the product, right now we don't have a native mobile app or things like that where we can hit them with those types of messages, but we do have in-app messaging to help drive specific actions, or we'll just full on productize it, right? So having a checklist of things that you do in the platform you haven't tried before, hey, make sure you have your most recent job title in there so people can find you if they're interested in speaking to someone with your experience, filling out your complete profile so students can find you. Students, why don't you record a little video, introduce yourself so alumni feel comfortable like responding to you and want to help you out, rather than leaving your profile blank. So there's a lot of things you can do once they've logged in to help drive those types of messages, whether it be overlay pop-up or fully productized experience that's walking them through the next step.
Yeah, as you're saying that, Jackie, too, I'm hearing you call out some different user types of like this alumni member or this student. So back to what you're saying earlier of kind of like these different personas, or what did you call them? Not personas, archetypes?
Oh, archetypes. Yes.
Archetypes. Yeah. But personalizing it to each, what would help give them the value that probably they came for. It's probably different. So that's, exactly. a cool call out.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about onboarding activation. Let's flow over to kind of the middle stage of the life cycle. So I'm going to pull the slide back up here. So we get into product adoption and expansion, or whatever your business calls this kind of middle phase after somebody has successfully got through those first milestones. I actually, as a little visual here, used a segment that I built in Customerio as an example of maybe you have a customer who their customer type is active, they're active in your product. They performed that event or that behavior recently of reaching that first product milestone. Maybe that's successfully setting up a profile or successfully like on LingoPie, streaming a first video and using the product. And then they've also been viewing the content actively in the last 7 days. So maybe this is just an example segment, but let's say you've got this person who's onboarded and they're at least semi-active in the product. What are you trying to get them to do next? Or how are you trying to get them to expand their usage of your product through messaging? Jackie, maybe can you kick this one off?
Yeah, sure. So like I said earlier, our key success metric is connections, making connections, responding. And one of our big challenges is alumni will join the platform with all the great intentions of helping out students, and then they don't respond. So so we've got some engaged students that are reaching out to alumni, and then we have some unengaged alumni that we need to draw back into the platform. So having a series of reminders and nudges that are happening, whether it be through email for those who aren't logging in, or through in the platform for those who are logging in, to remind them like, hey, you've got this unanswered message, or hey, somebody reached out to you. Did you guys schedule a meeting yet? Having those types of messages to remind people to come back and engage with the platform and reply. So that's for us is the big key metric for success. And then also just logging in a regular basis. So having those monthly active users for us is really important. So making sure they're coming in about once a month just to see what's new, make sure they've responded to all their messages, update their information if they've had a job change, or their archetype has changed. So you know what, I figured out what I want to do next. Now I just need some help landing that first job. That's a totally different archetype than you were the last time you joined. So being able to get that information and get people to constantly be updating their information and give us more data so we can match them with the right people is really crucial for us.
Jackie, how much is that? I've talked to different folks, and some of their people have said, hey, your first email should just be a question to gain more information versus like assume something about a archetype or a persona right off the bat in case that maybe they are a unique case. Are you doing some sort of that kind of asking only in the product or via your campaigns or both? How does that all work?
Yeah, so right now that predominantly lives in the product. In our onboarding campaign, we definitely have some segmentation around whether somebody's already done something or not. So, we'll skip a message, or we'll send them a different kind of message if they've already taken the action of completed their profile, for example. So there's definitely that. I think one of the things that we're actually doing some testing around now is, what if we just, like you said, ask them one question, like get them to do this one thing to fill out their profile rather than try to get them to fill out the whole thing, so it's definitely something that we're looking into and testing now with messaging in our onboarding flow.
Yeah. Olga, what are your thoughts here? What I guess at LingoPie, when somebody has successfully onboarded, what are those behaviors or things that you're trying to get them to do next to make sure that they have found the value and are finding more and more value as they go?
Yeah, in our case, it's a little bit easier than in Jackie's, because we already have confirmation about activity inside platform, and we don't need to know so much for user except of their location, their names, their emails, do they have mobile device or not, because we have application for push notifications, and everything else is measured inside the platform. So how active they are, how often they watch, how many minutes they watched of TV show, did they add some words to flashcards or review them. So our goal is to keep a person engaged this 7 days after starting free trial, to convert them to users who are with us already in subscription. based like depends on what they will choose, monthly or yearly lifetime. So we trying to push content on them, and it depends on if they active or not, like first days. So we can touch them, like if they like some users, so they are motivated, we don't need to push them at all. So but we measure like first few days, like how they behave, and then we just like pushing forward like some TV shows to recommend, or like we have every week we have onboarding webinars, like for somebody who didn't like get familiar with platform and have some struggles, like live conversations with our product team, they answering them. And on second hand, we have free English classes, like for people who struggling like to keep learning like by themselves, and they need some direction and based on TV shows. So anyway, it's like about delivering like relevant content. Anyway, like but like it depends on activity. Like we like invite for webinars everybody, but for keeping like different TV shows, it's a matter of how they active in the first few days after starting free trial. That's it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm thinking too, like at Customerio, for example, when somebody comes into our product for the first time, they might be wanting to create a segment of their users first based on data, or maybe they're a really like mobile app heavy company. So they're really actually, maybe they don't want to do email yet. They just want to set up push notifications and in-app messaging, or maybe they don't have a mobile app at all and they just want to do email. So there's these different routes that folks might want to take to find that continued value. Olga, is it always the same order of steps that you want someone to go through, or does it kind of ebb and flow based on what the user is kind of showing you with their behaviors?
It's depend on behavior also, like we're building it every time. So if like right now it's like one flow per like language they pick, it depends like in this like big tree flow. Like to be honest, we have like more than 100 versions of emails for like users from the registration process. Depends on like trialing they registered, they paying they ask like, or like some old users we reactivate, or the push notifications also. So right now it's like one flow per each language that can be like contains like different logic for people who registered trialing or paying, to not bother like people who pay in an active or try in an active, and to push more like people who just registered and did nothing. And we're building right now like it's like further we want to separate people who start like trialing and treat them very differently, like, and measure that differently. And depend on did they like do something significant, or they just like keep silent and might churn, like. So it's just like a huge process, but we have a lot of data, like, and data is a key here, and we want to use the most like of again like it's at user, like, because we had like idea just like even like push people with the weekly stats, but it might be rotating, like also for some people they might just like to decide to churn. So we just like the matter of user behavior here, and you need just like to be very detailed to not over segment, but anyway like we will continue like to segment them like more and more and more. So yeah.
Just start with something and then add complexity when it's helpful versus just to do so. I'm curious on what you said there too, Olga, of sending like a progress update based on their data, what they've done, but also being like, do they want that, or is that just one more thing in their inbox? I think Olga, you actually brought this up before the event of how do you find the balance of not over messaging your user. I think this is like the magic question that a lot of folks are asking. So what is the answer? How do you determine how to not over message your user?
So that's very complicated. There is no panacea here, like no magic wand exists. It's like depends on product and your ability to discover new things like about your users every time. So but I can we have like subscription based model, like it's B2C, quite cheap. And I'd say like monthly users like tend to churn more. People who obviously like didn't make like one-time purchase or one time per year purchase for you. They just like might churn, and you just like might remind them. So it's depend on how they act. Sometimes they just pay and do nothing. And to be honest, like it's like we have like less than 20% of users who monthly, but I suggest to not like touch them like until the end. After like welcome email, if they made decision, or after any email they made decision like to be monthly with you, do not touch them. But you can try to see if you have some very like active monthly based users. You can try to upsell them to like more advanced plans. So yeah, so just like, and we really like trying to not scare like our paying people, to not bother them a lot, because we need to keep in mind that it's not only one product they subscribe for. Like everybody like, you know, send push notification, everybody like emails them, like, and you just like can, you know, irritate them more and make unsubscribe from emails in the best case. In the worst case, unsubscribe from your product. Because we had like this case, our co-founder was going to join like some cool conversation with a big Spanish learning influencer like in the States, and we notified everybody, like and we had like, you know, massive unsubscription wave from monthly users. They just like canceled because we reminded them. I'd suggest like if you have the flow, when people start to pay you, just don't touch them. And if you have an ability to see like if they're active on your platforms, they like visit your website, interact, just try to work with these people and convert in some community-based activity. And people who are not very active but still paying to you, just relax and take it easy. Like if you, it's not very like nice to say, but it works, and unfortunately it's reality we faced with.
Yeah.
So like, and I have questions how to know. So it's just like if you have metrics, how often they visit your platform, how they use your product. If you have some, like in our case, it's like watching, did they watch like something in past week, for example. So it's enough to say they are more or less active. If they sound like and do not like, you know, enter to your platform for a month, like for 2 weeks, like do not pay effort like to touch them, like let them be.
Yeah. And the question that popped up in the chat, thanks for answering it, Olga, was how do we know if our push notifications or email really is taking our users' interest, or vice versa, just disturbing them? Jackie, what's your thoughts here? What kind of metrics or thoughts do you have around if we're over messaging someone, or if we're sending just the right amount of messages to help provide value?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the obvious things to watch are unsubscribe rates and see what's happening there. Like if you start seeing a jump in unsubscribes, you might be, you know, pushing on the gas a little too hard. But I think it also goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's if somebody's already logging into the platform and taking action, then you really don't need to message them, right? Like they're already doing what you need them to do. So making sure that you're respecting, you know, your active users and giving them the space to, you know, get value from the platform. And use your messaging strategy to help drive value for the user, not just, you know, constantly put yourself in front of them. Because if they're already logging in, they're already in the platform, they're already doing what you want them to do, you don't really need to be constantly messaging them to remind them to do something they're already doing. That's just naggy and annoying. So just like, you know, put yourself in their shoes, like, oh, I'm already logging in, why am I getting this email? I already did that. So and I think the other thing too is now, you know, your recipients are so smart. They are marketing savvy. They're expecting personalized communication. So if you're failing to do that and you're failing to, they know you know everything. So why not use the data to create something that's reacting to their activity? So I think that's really important to keep in mind. It's much easier to meet your users where they're at and be respectful of their time and space, and easier to start sending more message later than to once they've unsubscribed, you've lost them. So
Right.
you can't get them back. So it's definitely a fine line to tread.
Yeah. I appreciate y'all talking there about some of this adoption and expansion and messaging balance topics. We have about 18 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get over to kind of our later life cycle, and then leave the last 10 minutes here for Q&A questions. Thanks for folks who are jumping in on the chat and asking things. Please continue to jump in here as we get into our last topic, so that we can make sure we answer stuff that's on your mind. So this last part of the life cycle that we're going to talk about, whatever your business calls it, is it the re-engagement phase? Is it when someone falls inactive? Do you call it churn if you're a subscription company? The question is, how are you identifying and engaging users who maybe are showing inactivity or churn behaviors? Like, what are those behaviors that you look for, and what are your steps to hopefully bring them back in, or at least find out some information of why they aren't, continuing with your product or being active in your product? Jackie, can we start with you? What do you look for here in this kind of like inactivity phase of a user?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're focused so much more on those earlier life cycle stage, especially adoption and onboarding. So I don't necessarily have any tangible examples of what we're looking for inactive and churn on the user side. But going back to kind of the big picture of what it's like in education and the business in general, and I think of my customer marketing manager would say the same thing. Something to keep an eye on in education in general is just high turnover of staff. That's a big risk for us on the business side. So something that you're going to have to do, your point of contact is inevitably going to leave. There's just tons of turnover in this industry. So your retention strategy really could look more like a re-onboarding strategy and a resale strategy rather than a retention strategy. So something to keep in mind if you're on the customer side in education is to look out for that on the business side, because that's a big challenge for us and I think the industry in general.
Yeah, I love that. Instead of retention, calling it re-onboarding, getting people back to starting back up and finding those first aha moments maybe in the product, especially if it's somebody new. Olga, what does this later life cycle stage look like for at LingoPie? And we could maybe even talk about folks who have canceled. Is there kind of a win back play, or what do we do with folks who have fallen inactive?
Yeah, so first of all, I like how Jackie called it grandboarding. It's what totally happens for us, for very old users who registered and did nothing, forget about LingoPie and even language they wanted to learn. What related to cancellation flow, so it's very important if you have some opportunity to automate your product, your platform, and ask them directly before they will cancel why they're doing this, because it's very insightful. We have 6 reasons why people cancel. Yeah, you will have some gray area in it when somebody just doesn't want to collaborate with you and to tell you what's going on, why they want to churn, to just cancel. But it's very interesting because price sometimes is not the biggest problems they faced with. Might be technical issues, or in our case it might be it's hard for them to continue without some mentor, because it's too hard for them to study a language in that way, or they have no they didn't find content to continue learning. And that's interesting because first of all, inside the product, we already try to engage them, to change their decision with discount, just it's casual trick in marketing, just solve problems with discount. But we have different treatment with people, depend on the reasons they canceling. Sometimes it's even leads to personal speaking with our product manager because our product team very interested in what's going on, what they can improve, or just we can offer them, mentorship. In our case, if somebody faced some struggles to continue learning by their own, or it might be classical discount, or it might be some customer success process when we identify what's going on in technical side, what they can improve from development perspective. So it's quite massive, but it helps us a lot to ask them what happens and it's very cool. They really appreciate when we contact them and just speak with them human to human, and people really share very insightful information for our product, how we can improve it. So something like this. You have a flow depend on reason of canceling and different treatment without like offering anything the first step, the second step without offering something like, and maybe like some personal chat depend on reason of cancellation. So like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Olga, as you're talking through that, the reason for canceling the reason and making sure it's not just a maybe it isn't about price. Like maybe price is not that big of a deal. I'm thinking of my wife and I subscribe to a vitamin subscription that sends you your monthly vitamins, one for each day. And during the summers, we travel a lot, and so the vitamins go to our house, and then we come back to our house, and our cupboards are full of vitamins. So
Oh
it's
my
not
gosh.
we're at risk of churn, not because the price is an issue, but more of like we can't fit this many things in our cupboards. But the company that we use, I actually got a nice push notification the other day that was like, do you have too much? Like, let's pause if you do. So very much like probably realizing that I'm not going to stop paying because I can't anymore, but it's probably because my cupboard's too full,
Yes.
and we need to stop things. So understanding that reason, yeah,
Good case.
that's a good use case. Okay, I want to make sure we leave a few minutes for questions here. One last thing, I know Jackie and Olga, you both are users of Customerio. And Olga, I know you said one thing that is important to you is being able to use Customerio in a way that allows you to kind of provide that one-to-one type experience for every user, even though you have so many users that there's no way you could do that with just like human interaction or manual communications. Talk to me a little bit about that quickly. Like what are some key things in Customerio maybe that you use to create those one-to-one type interactions?
For me, like automated flows, automated campaigns and Customerio are the best because you have like big amount of users who register in a day with different conditions, different languages, different decision making. And I need to, I'd say like to check the logic every time, every step, every email, like on which decision making process they are. Did they pick language? Did they do something like so? It allows me to build really like big and massive flows and control them like drag and drop easily. And also I like the way how Customerio did like personalization part with Liquid. It integrated very well with our database, and I can, take whatever information I want to from starting from their names, ending for like their like goal of learning like or level language or where when they like was last time in the platform, and also creating segments because we have more like segment based approach. Somebody enters and leaves segments, and it like allows me to combine very flexibly like very different conditions, and also like sometimes I don't need like Mixpanel or Tableau like to check people because it like works very good with data, and data is like everything like I think in our case, and we make decisions like depend on data we receive. So that's the biggest advantage of Customerio, this like flexibility and building automated campaigns.
Yeah. Jackie, I'm curious to get your quick thoughts here too. I think our webinar audiences are a mix of folks. Some folks are customers, some folks are maybe considering Customerio. Some people are maybe just learning about new tools that are out there. Is there any specific thing that you'd say is like your secret weapon in Customerio or something that you come to every day and use?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love the ease of segmentation in Customer.io. So being able to build these really dynamic segments based off of a lot of different functionality, whether it be a message they've already received or interacted with, an action they're taking in the platform, some attribute that I have set up in the data. Being able to combine all of those to create really dynamic segments has been really helpful in creating these personalized campaigns and dynamic campaigns, especially working in a B2C environment. There's always a challenge in any marketing platform in particular in deploying to that just because it's kind of a strange space. But the other thing that is my favorite thing about Customer.io is your support, like being able to reach out and get awesome answers to my crazy questions about how do I make this work in my unique situation has been fantastic. So that's my other go-to is customer.io support. It's like, how do I do this random thing I'm trying to do? So having all of those, the resources available to figure that out, especially in, like I said, in challenging world of B2B2C marketing, but also having real people who react really wonderfully and friendly and with really are helpful in their interactions has been fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate you both sharing. I think one of the beauty of it, Jackie, to your point, is sometimes when you ask the question of how do I do this in a Customerio, there's usually 5 answers because you could do it a bunch of different ways. So figuring out what the best way is or which way matches your data model. As we can see with both of you, there is different data models that are using the tool and doing things in there. So I appreciate you sharing. Okay, I know we have 7 minutes left. So we want to get to Q&A here. Real quick before we do, if this webinar has been helpful for you and you want to see more of what Customerio actually can do, if you want to see these segments and drag and drop workflows that Jackie and Olga have kind of talked about, a demo is a great next step. You can go on our website and fill out the form. If you aren't even evaluating tools, but you just kind of want to see like what are the top campaigns that folks that we have in our tool and are running, you can sign up there. And also we're coming out with later this week our data tracking plan specific to different industries. So if you're kind of looking at your event and attribute data and you're saying, do we have the right data to be able to capitalize on our campaigns? This guide is kind of a great way to take a first step towards making your first data tracking plan or auditing your existing data that you're sending into your marketing tools. So we'll send that over to you later this week as kind of a take-home content and next step. Okay, so we have 6 minutes left. I appreciate Ricky has already asked a question here in the chat earlier that we got to. If anybody else has anything in the audience that is on your mind today or that we didn't get to, would love to hear. So go ahead and post in the chat or the questions box, and Olga and Jackie, I'm hopeful that you would be happy to answer them.
It looks like we had a question earlier from Caleb on how customer engagement strategies change, if at all, as summer's coming to an end. And I feel like this definitely, this is my universe right now. A lot of our partners are looking to launch or relaunch platforms right now. So it's super busy time, and it's definitely a time, especially for students, to get in front of students as they're coming back to school. Being able to reach them on campus through on-campus marketing and through our partners, but also this is a great time to engage them. They're already signing up for so many things, and making sure they're set up for success for the school year. This is a good time to get them thinking about that. Like leverage the hope and positive energy coming into a new school year is definitely really important to us. So yeah, very busy time for EdTech in the end of summer and into September.
Olga, is there any seasonality to LingoPie? Do you have influxes of users at certain types of the year, or is it a little more steady?
Yeah, it's like it definitely has variations. Depends on the month, and holidays. So as you know, before Christmas and some days e-commerce brands stop seeing the marketing and all this study activities they reduces, and we just have this low season. But after some 2 weeks, months after Christmas, for example, we have some space to promote ourselves and engage with people. For what's related about back to school, we had survey on our platform to define who are our users, and it's quite of mature people who work already on the jobs or retired, but it's very cool for us just to target them as parents or as grandmas, grandpas, and try to convert for them their children. We have LingoPie Kids we're promoting, and also right now we have back to school promo that targeting people outside the platform from acquisition channels, but inside the platform we advising or to start or just engage your child to learn language also as a additional to their main studies. So it's more about not our users but their relatives That's it.
Yeah. We have a couple more minutes here. Let me check if there's any more questions. I'm curious as we close out, Jackie and Olga, thank you so much in advance for doing this event and also providing your insights. I think it's always so insightful across industries to hear how different marketers are creating these campaigns or managing data or segmenting based on this or that, or maybe even holding off messaging at certain points because the user doesn't need it. I'm curious, just in closing, is there anything that you're excited to test this next year with your campaigns, or any different variables that you're thinking about in planning out lifecycle journeys? Jackie, maybe I'll start with you. Anything that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so right now we're very much living in email land, and I'm excited to expand our channels and potentially go into SMS and potentially doing some in-platform messaging and connecting more of our systems. That's something I'm really excited about, and definitely something we can do with Customer.io, which is exciting too. So we don't have to, leverage any new platforms to be able to do that. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about for the coming year.
That's exciting. Olga, anything that you're excited about testing or using?
Yeah, we launched we improved our state of our applications, mobile applications for us on Android, and we launched a freemium model on them. So for me, it's just I think the most excited thing as push notifications to work with them more in premium model. And also we started to provide lifetime one-time purchase that works pretty well, just to consider maybe if you thinking about it, just think about it. So, and also to shift a little bit from monthly subscription to yearly, 3 months for lifetime subscription model, and to re-engage the old users, and to make more focus on this also in emails, and to upsell it for our existing yearly and monthly users.
Yeah, I love the as both of you responded there, the testing of channels, mixing in different channels, but also testing of different pricing models, or how people will upsell into a lifetime type membership or something like that. Yeah, we'll keep in touch. That'll be really interesting to see how that goes. And yeah, again, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Olga, for coming on here, sharing all your tips and tricks, and hope the audience took a lot of things away from it. I know I did. So appreciate the time, and thanks everybody for joining.